Walters is back for another season as the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast. They've been with us since our very first season on air in 2021. Walters is located just across the street from the ballpark.
Carvana's so easy, just a click, and we've got ourselves a car. See?
So many cars. That's a click-tastic inventory.
And check out the financing options. Payments to fit our budget. I mean, that's...
Clickonomics 101.
Delivery to our door?
Just a hop, skip, and a click away.
And bought.
No better feeling than when everything just clicks. Buy your car today on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
2-2 from Irvin to Nimmo. Is popped in the air to center field. Jacob Young drifting back with room shy of the warning track. He makes the catch, and it's another 1-2-3 inning for Jake Irvin. For the second start in a row, Irvin has pitched 6 one-hit innings.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark is in West Palm Beach, Florida, site of Nats Spring Training, which is winding down as opening day is just about a week away. Recording this on Wednesday morning, March 18th. Opening day is Thursday, March 26th. We have the Nats at the Chicago Cubs on Thursday afternoon, March 26th at 2:20 for Game 1 of a 3-game series. Good to have you with us. If you are interested in sponsoring an episode of the Nats Chat podcast, we'd love to have you on board. Contact the man who runs this podcast, Tim Shovers, at natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Advertising on this podcast, a great way, a direct way to reach a sizable DMV audience. Also, you on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews of the podcast. 5-star ratings are greatly appreciated. Positive reviews are greatly appreciated. And we thank everyone for doing those things. And we thank you for listening to this podcast, what is the only Nats podcast for which there is a new episode for the morning after every Nats regular season game day, weekday, weekend. We are with you. We, during spring training, have been doing episodes on about a weekly basis, but we're doing this episode a little less than a week after our last episode, and we'll be doing our next episode, our season preview episode, in less than a week. So the frequency with which we are doing episodes is picking up. I'm not sure if we have properly built up our arm strengths, but we'll see what ends up happening. So the Nats this past Friday afternoon announced a bunch of cuts, including having option pitcher Mitchell Parker to AAA Rochester. We know that Parker is coming off a bad season, but we also have another Nats pitcher who's coming off a bad season, Jake Irvin, having an excellent exhibition season. Has he perhaps clinched being the Nats' number 5 starter? More on him shortly. But Mark, as we are approaching the end of Nats spring training, and I know you wrote about this on NatsJournal.com not too long ago, what is truly left for the Nats to decide in terms of the opening day roster?
You know, Al, it's in some ways it looks like everything is kind of set or there aren't that many decisions to be made. But I feel like the decisions that are still out there are some pretty significant ones for that matter. Let's start with catching. The Nationals actually came out and announced that they have optioned Harry Ford to AAA Rochester. They also optioned Abimelec Ortiz, the first baseman, and reassigned Riley Adams to minor league camp. So that does change the situation at catcher to open the season. It'll be Keibert Ruiz and Drew Millis starting the year as the catchers. I presume Ruiz as the number 1 guy with Millis as the clear backup. And then this allows Harry Ford to play every day or most days as the number 1 catcher in Rochester. I don't think it's terribly surprising. We kind of had a feeling this might be the way they go. It was really a question of, do they want to do a timeshare and have Ford and Ruiz split the job at the big league level? Or do they think Ford is better served playing more, 4 or 5 times a week instead of 2 or 3 times a week and having him do that at AAA? Remember, he only has 8 games of big league experience. He missed time while he was at the World Baseball Classic playing for Great Britain. I don't think this means it's going to be a long time before we see Harry Ford in the big leagues. It'll happen if he gets off to a good start in Rochester. And quite frankly, Keibert Ruiz has earned the right to show them what he can do after all the concussion issues last year. He's been healthy. He's been productive this spring. Give him a chance to be the guy to start the year, see how it goes, see how Ford does in Rochester. And then along the way, I figure we will see Harry Ford in the big leagues, whether that's sharing the job with Ruiz or even taking over for him if the situation warrants it. I think we have a sense of what's happening at first base. That was the one position that we thought might be kind of up for grabs. At this point, it's clear Luis Garcia is going to get at least some of the playing time there in a timeshare. And I think it's pretty clear that Andres Chaparro is the right-handed, other half of that equation. I think the back of the rotation, as you said, it's starting to come into focus. Seems pretty clear to me that Jake Irvin is going to be the fifth guy. There's still the matter of Zack Littell. He's scheduled to start Wednesday night. We're recording this Wednesday morning. Talking to him, he seems to believe that with a couple more outings, he'll be good to go. But there is a question there of can he get himself completely ready in time to start the year? So there is that. Really, the biggest decisions or the most wide open competition that's left out there is the bullpen. And I think a good number of spots are probably secure at this point, but there's probably 9 guys still in camp competing for 2 or 3 remaining spots in the bullpen. And a lot of them have pitched well, at least the numbers say they've pitched well. So there is that. I think that one's going to go right down to the very end. I would imagine that the final decision they make is going to be the last member or 2 of the bullpen.
One of the things that I really liked from Zack Littell when he signed with the Nats was that he made it clear that he had been working out and had been preparing as if he was with the team and was getting ready for an opening day. I can't stand when these guys sign late or at least multiple weeks into camp and they haven't been doing anything and then they end up not being ready for the start of the regular season and they can't play in a game until you're multiple weeks into the regular season. It's like, hey, you're allowed to throw on your own, get ready on your own. It sounds like Littell was doing that. I mean, the fact that there is a chance, maybe even a decent chance, that he's good to go for that first turn of the rotation of the regular season, I think is a credit to him. He signed late in spring training that he could be good to go. First of all, would be good for the Nats, but second of all, I think is a credit to him for preparing himself properly.
Yeah, it's absolutely credit to him. He was at, I believe, the Cressy facility in South Florida, where a lot of guys work out. And he said he was, facing hitters. He was building up as if he was actually in a camp. Now, it's not the exact same thing as being in a real game situation against big leaguers and everything that comes along with that. But he felt like he did everything that he could to keep up with everyone else who had already signed. If this goes well on Wednesday night, he was probably going to go 3, maybe 4 innings in this one. Then he could have one more start after that. It's probably, at this point, one of the games that's back in either Baltimore or D.C. And if that goes well and he's able to get up to 5 innings, that probably sets him up to be good to go. I think I said it when he signed. He's technically on a 5-day schedule right now that lines up with game 2 of the season at Wrigley Field. Now, they don't have to do that. They could bump him to further back in the rotation and give him several more days. So that's not a lock. They have other things they can do, some maneuvering they can do for that game. But at the moment, he is lined up for that game, which is pretty remarkable. If he does end up starting the second game of the season for a guy who signed in early to mid-March, that's pretty remarkable if it does come to that.
Yeah, March 10th was when the Nats officially announced the signing of Zack Littell. Opening day is on March 26th, so he signed 2 weeks and change prior to opening day. The fact that he could be ready for opening day, not that he'll be pitching on opening day, that's a pretty good thing to see. So Jake Irvin, as we know, you are taking quite the risk when you start reading into exhibition season stats. But we're going to do that right now. We're going to take some risk here on the Nats Chat podcast. Jake Irvin, of course, had a wretched 2025 season. Jake Irvin has had an excellent 2026 exhibition season. It has been really good to see this. Now, what it means, who knows? But your Jake Irvin statistics for the 2026 exhibition season: 4 games, all starts, 13 and a third innings, ERA of 1.35, WHIP of 1.05, and maybe as encouraging as anything, 15 strikeouts in the 13 and a third innings. As we said just a few minutes ago, it is looking like he has locked down that number 5 spot in the rotation. But what are we to do here with these Jake Irvin stats? Are we to find meaning in them? Should we be skeptical of them? What do you think is the right way to view what Irvin has done here?
Well, you'd always rather see a guy with a 1.35 ERA in spring training than a 9.35 ERA in spring training. So that's good, of course. I don't want to read too much into that one, or even the WHIP, or the number of base runners that he has. To me, the most significant stat there is the strikeout rate, because his strikeout rate, he was never a huge strikeout guy, but his rate went down last year. I think it was down to 6.7 per 9 innings. So the fact that he is striking out more than a batter per inning this spring, and I watched his start the other day, these aren't called third strikes. These are swinging strikes, and he's facing some big league hitters. That, to me, is probably the most encouraging sign. Does that guarantee it's going to carry over into the regular season? No, of course not. You flip a switch and everything changes and everybody's back down to zero. So I don't want to get too caught up into it. But if you are looking for signs that maybe he is turning a corner here, I think that's the most encouraging one out of it all. And I think we talked about on a previous episode how he's really changed his mindset. The last couple of years, he viewed himself as the workhorse. I'm going to eat up as many innings as I can. And what wound up happening is you often get beat up in the first inning and say, well, I still got to get us through 6 no matter what. He's taken a totally different mindset to this camp and saying, I am going after hitters. I'm going to be more aggressive. I'm not leaving anything in the tank for later in the game. If I only go 4 or 5 innings, so be it. Hopefully the performance is good enough that I can go longer than that and still pitch 6, 7 innings. But he's not going into it with that mindset of I have to go 6 or 7 innings. More aggressive. I think you've seen the fastball velocity maintain itself a little more than we have. I think that was always a question with him. And then that allows him to use his curveball and his other stuff to get out to finish off hitters. So I'm really interested to see what that looks like. This is a guy who at times has pitched very well in the big leagues. His first half last year was not that bad, and then it fell apart for him in the second half. So I want to see what this looks like. I'm not giving up on him as a big league pitcher. And I think the signs we're seeing from this spring, as encouraging as they can get in spring training and make you believe, okay, this could be a sign that this stuff is sustainable, that he can do this in the regular season.
It's funny, the arc we've been on here with Jake Irvin, because the conversation a few months ago was, might the Nats non-tender him? The Nats did not non-tender him. They did tender him. And now, as we're getting ready to close out spring training, it's considered a given question mark that he's a number 5 starter. I mean, at this point, I think it'd be a surprise if he wasn't the number 5 starter. Now, if you look at the Nats' regular season schedule, there are a decent number of off days over the first few weeks. This is usually the case, but the Nats have an off day on day 2 of the regular season, Friday, March 27th, have an off day on Thursday, April 2nd, have an off day on Thursday, April 9th. Do you think Blake Butera will go with a 5-man rotation to begin things, or do you think we might see a 4-man rotation initially in the regular season?
Yeah, so he's been kind of coy about this and not really wanting to declare anything other than saying Cade Cavalli's the opening day starter. He really isn't revealing anything else yet. And I think there is flexibility there because of those off days that they can map this out how they want. Again, if you look at who's pitching when, Irvin's actually pitching the day after Cade Cavalli did and the day before Zack Littell did. So that's actually, you extrapolate that out, that's the day after opening day. Well, that's an off day in Chicago. So when I mentioned earlier that Littell is lined up for game 2, that's Saturday at Wrigley Field. And if they did that, then Irvin is in theory the number 5 starter, and he doesn't come back to pitch until the next time around. So you kind of skip him the first time around, and then he comes around to pitch either game 5 or even game 6 of the season. Now, the flexibility there, if they don't think Littell is going to be 100% ready to go and want to give him a little more time, Irvin could very easily slot into the number 2 game of the year at Wrigley Field. It doesn't make him their number 2 starter, but he's lined up where it's just one extra day off for him to do that. So I think that's where the flexibility comes in. One thing I've been wondering, and I don't think we're going to see this, at least not early on, is the possibility of a 6-man rotation. And that would include Josiah Gray, who is starting a game here in the next couple of days. So that's something that he's pitching against big leaguers. He's still here. I think we've all kind of speculated that it looks like he's going to open the year at AAA and then be brought up when they feel like he's ready for that. When that happens, how do they go about this? Maybe there is a 6-man rotation that they go to at some point, but I don't think you'd see that from the get-go because of the extra off days. I don't think you're going to do that. And because you carry 6 starters, you now only have 7 relievers, and you're putting a lot of extra stress on them and a group that, as we know, is very unproven. So do you want to throw all that at them from the start? Probably not. I think if that happens, it happens later on.
What's also notable is that the Nats are poised to have, we hope, legitimate starting pitching options at AAA Rochester. I mentioned the Nats this past Friday having optioned Mitchell Parker to AAA. Also on that day was the Nats optioning Andrew Alvarez to AAA. It has not been often in recent years that we've gone into a regular season saying, okay, if this guy struggles in the major league rotation, there is, a ready-made option at AAA. There are multiple ready-made options at AAA. I don't want to overstate what the Nats have in Parker and Alvarez. Of course, Parker's coming off a rough season, but that is different. That is a departure from what we have seen in the past. And, we did talk about this previously, but if, say, a Miles Mikolas gets off to a rough start, do we see a quicker trigger than we have become accustomed to from a standpoint of yanking the guy from the rotation and summoning, a Parker or an Alvarez from Rochester and putting that person into the rotation?
Yeah, I think, as I said last week, I think that's one of the most interesting things to me. Is this organization going to handle that situation differently than we'd seen the previous group do that, where they would just ride it out for months with one of these veterans who was struggling? Are they more willing to make a move early on at the sign of trouble? They are going to have depth. Now, you can debate how good that depth is, but it's certainly much more viable AAA depth. How many times did we talk about on this podcast, man, why is Patrick Corbin still in the rotation? And my answer was, well, they don't really have anybody who's better than him at the moment that they could call up. They don't have a sixth starter waiting in the wings. They're going to have guys who are viable. Now, let's look at what that Rochester rotation might look like on opening day. And I'm speculating here, but I think this is probably what we're talking about. Something like this. Josiah Gray, obviously big league experience, and is going to be up here at some point once they believe that he's ready to go and not worried about his workload. Mitchell Parker, yes, struggled last year, but was encouraging the year before that. He's got 2 big league seasons under his belt. Andrew Alvarez looked really impressive in September. Was that fool's gold? I don't know, but it was enough for me to say, hey, I'd like to see that again at some point, what he can be. Riley Cornelio was their minor league pitcher of the year. He impressed this spring before they sent him down. He's somebody else to look at down there. Luis Perales is a really hard-throwing pitcher they got from the Red Sox this winter, somebody that Paul Taboni had known in their organization. He's missed a lot of time because of recovery from Tommy John, but he looks like he's healthy. He is definitely an arm to watch. Not one of the first call-ups, but down the road. That's 5 people right there that I just named. We haven't even mentioned Brad Lord, who it looks like is opening in the bullpen, but as we know, could be a starter. That's a lot of options. And who knows how good any of them would be, but those are way more viable backup options than they've had here in quite a while. And so while you hope the 5 they start the year with are good enough and don't need to be replaced, whether it's for performance or for injury, I think it's really comforting to know that if, and more likely when, something does happen that requires a change, you've got some real legitimate choices now to turn to who have the potential to not just come up here and fill in, but to actually stick if they're good enough.
There also is Trevor Williams on the 60-day injured list. There also is DJ Hers on the 60-day injured list. So those guys are potential options as the season goes on as well.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and 0 weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
2-0 delivery. Swing and a long drive to left field. This is way back. This one may go. It is going, and gone. Goodbye. Another home run. Clears the wall and up into the second deck. Close to where he hit his first Major League home run. And on the day when he hit his first, he hits his second Major League home run. A 2-homer day for Brady House. And a 2-out, 2-run shot here in the top of the 8th inning gives the Nationals the lead. Bang! Zoom goes Brady House. It's the Nationals 4 and the Brewers 3.
The Nats' best hitter so far this exhibition season has been third baseman Brady House. He is putting up video game numbers, 12 games, 32 at-bats, 35 plate appearances, batting average 438, on base percentage 457, slugging percentage 906. These stats as of Wednesday morning. Now, we understand spring training. I mean, his batting average on balls in play this exhibition season is 550. You're not going to be doing that come the regular season, we understand. But Brady House, of course, a key young player for the Nats. Brady House, of course, underwhelmed at the major league level last season. Brady House, we hope, poised for a breakout 2026 season. What has stood out to you in watching Brady House have this great exhibition season?
I think it's better swing decisions. Here's a guy who had one of the worst chase rates around last year. He would swing at everything. I don't even think he drew 10 walks in the big leagues, and he was up for a good half a season. So better swing decisions. And the hits he's collecting have mostly been for extra bases. A ton of doubles, 3 homers as well. He's driving in runs. He hit a double the other day that was down the first base line to drive in a run. So a guy who we maybe thought of as being very pull happy when we first saw him last year, now showing an ability to go to the opposite field. So that's all encouraging. Now, again, it's spring training. Do I think Brady House is going to be putting up MVP style numbers this season? Probably not. But of the group of hitters that you came into spring and said, boy, I'd really like to see something encouraging from them before going into the season, because, you know, it's not like a James Wood or a Dalen Lyle who we have seen have success at the big league level. We haven't seen that yet with Brady House. So to see him do this over the last month, that to me is quite encouraging. And the hope is that it does carry over in the regular season. It may not, but I don't think what we're seeing from him is completely an aberration. I don't think these are cheap hits. I think it's a sign of some good stuff that he's doing. And if he swings at the right pitches, I think he has the potential to be a good big league hitter.
You know, you go into an exhibition season, especially with a young team like the Nats, and you do identify certain people who you say to yourself, okay, it would be nice if this guy did well this exhibition season. He kind of needs it, you know, and Brady House to me fell into that category going into this exhibition season. So I am really happy to see him doing as he is doing. James Wood has not had a great exhibition campaign. He had a very good game, though, on Monday evening. It was good to see that. I don't know that anyone is really worried about him. Dylan Cruz. So a few weeks ago, we made the joke of people panicking over Dylan Cruz struggling over the first few games of the exhibition campaign. We've gotten more of a sample size since. It still is a small sample when you talk about the Grapefruit League season, but the numbers for Dylan Cruz are not good. Again, as of Wednesday morning here, you're looking at 11 games, 28 at-bats, batting average 107, on-base percentage 188, slugging percentage of 107. Now, the batting average on balls in play is unusually low for Dylan Cruz so far here, 158. But over 32 plate appearances, the results have not been good. I have seen increased panic regarding Dylan Cruz on social media. And look, we understand taking anything from social media these days is dicey, but it's interesting to see how people react to this stuff. So what would you say about Dylan Cruz angst for Nationals fans right now? Justified, or do people need to calm down?
Oh, I'm seeing plenty of it myself on social media, on the comments on natsjournal.com. There are a lot of fans out there who believe that he should not make the opening day roster and that he should be at Rochester. I've even had a few people suggest Harrisburg. I don't think that one is going to happen. I don't think Rochester is going to happen, at least not to start the year. I think that's a dangerous way to go about this. I understand that he has not looked good. And believe me, he has not looked good. He has swung at some pitches that are way out of the zone. The contact he's making is weak. I've already seen him just in the few days I've been back down here hit several little tappers back to the mound, weak ground ball. So it's not like he's hitting line drives right at people. The quality of contact is not good. All of that is absolutely concerning. And the fact that he doesn't have a track record at the big league level the way that a James Wood or even a Dalen Lyle in a far smaller sample, but we know what Lyle did for 3 months last year. Cruz does not have that yet. So he hasn't really earned the benefit of the doubt the way that others do. The benefit of the doubt with him is basically the fact that he was the number 2 overall pick in the country, and most people believe he would have been number 1 overall if not for Paul Skeens. That's what he's going off of right now. Eventually, that doesn't count anymore. You have to show it at this level. So I do think there are concerns. Sending him down, though, right now, my fear would be that would kind of screw him up even more. I'm sure, it's hard to get anybody to say this right now, but I'm sure he's pressing. I'm sure he's got a lot in his head. I know they're working with him on things about his swing. Blake Butera said he doesn't believe he needs an overhaul, but, you had a previous administration and their hitting coaches, what they were coaching him to do last year. You have the midseason change in at least the manager and the GM. I know he works with his own people also in the off season. And now you have a brand new coaching staff that probably is trying to teach him some new things with a whole lot of new technology. This year, he gets off to a bad start. I can only imagine how many different thoughts are swirling through Dylan Cruz's head right now. Does sending him to AAA to start the year help or hurt that cause? I would argue, I think it might hurt it because now it's giving him even more reason to question what's going on and maybe not handle that the right way. Now, I don't think the rope should be unlimited. If he gets off to a bad start, you have to, acknowledge it at some point and say, this isn't working. We have to think about sending him down. But for now, I would get him out there opening day. I probably wouldn't have him high up in the lineup. I'd move him down. And you've seen that a few times here in spring training, not batting second or third, but down to like the 6th or 7th spot. Try to take some pressure off him. Hope that something clicks there and it gets going. And if not, then you have to consider those other, options, as it were. It hasn't looked good. It's not about the numbers with him. It's about how he looks. And from what I've seen, the games I've seen, he hasn't looked good at the plate.
It's disappointing and even a little bit surprising that he's not hitting balls harder. That is something that he had been doing. If you go by the StatCast data, Dylan Cruz over 311 career regular season batted balls at the major league level. Hard hit percentage 40.5. That's well above the MLB average of 37. So you'd like to think at the very least, maybe he's not getting the results, but he's hitting balls hard. The process is good. The process hasn't been all that good during the exhibition season. I'm with you on Cruz because, look, if he is who he is supposed to be, he's got to figure it out at the major league level. Having him do well at Rochester, I don't know how much that does unless he's just so lacking in confidence that he just needs to, get a few weeks of good baseball going for him here. It's rough, man, though, because, let's be honest about this. When the Nats took him with the number 2 overall pick, it's not just that he was a guy who was viewed as someone who would have been a number 1 overall pick in many other MLB drafts, is that he was viewed as an MLB-ready prospect. He was viewed as a guy, wow, stud at LSU, Golden Spikes Award winner. This is a guy who is ready to hit the ground running as a major leaguer. He was comped to Mike Trout. I mean, Paul Skeens got comped to Steven Strasburg. Cruz got comped to Mike Trout. Like, that's the kind of buildup there was for Dylan Cruz, and that the results so far at the major league level have been what they have been. Disappointing for sure. I just wonder, though, if this is one of these, funny money deals in an exhibition season where a month from now we're laughing at the bad spring training that Dylan Cruz had and that maybe, he does get himself going here. The BABIP is so low in spring training. You wonder, like, how much of this is just he's hitting balls in a way to where they're just not finding holes and not resulting in hits. But to your point, the process has not been good. And, this coaching staff, James Wood, assuming he is who we think he is, we just talked about Brady House. Dylan Cruz might be number 1 in terms of the people you're looking at this season and saying, okay, what are you? Because if you are who you were drafted to be, we need to see it this season. Like, it really should not be a multi-year process with a guy like this. If he's good, we really should see it this season.
I agree. And that's why I said I don't think you just ride it out for months. If he doesn't look the part, and it's clear that this isn't just an example of bad luck, but that he really needs some serious work, whether that's physically or even mentally. Yeah, you have to be willing to make that move at some point along the way. I don't think it should happen yet, but I think you do have to consider it with him. And, we know James Wood, in theory, is the best player on the team, and he's already started to show it at the big league level. We know C.J. Abrams has been an all-star. We know how good he can be when it all comes together. We sure got a glimpse of Dalen Lyle late in the season and saw how great he can be. Dylan Crews, in theory, if he becomes who he's supposed to be, the only player on the team who should be in that same category or above him is James Wood. He should be better than Brady House. He should be better than C.J. Abrams. He should be better than Harry Ford. But that's a lot of should-haves. And at some point, you actually have to do it. And we just have not seen that. I worry, or I wonder, did they rush him through the minor leagues? As you said, he was seen as this fast track to the big leagues guy because of the performance at a big-time program like LSU. It wasn't thought, this is a long-term project here. This is somebody who can work their way up quickly. And they promoted him like that kind of prospect. Did Mike Rizzo get kind of duped into hey, we already called up James Wood. Now it's time for the next one. And the rebuild is over. We're ready to bring these guys up and have some success. Well, it worked with Wood. It obviously has not worked with Crews yet. You throw the injury into the mix last year. As I said, there's, I'm sure, a ton of stuff swirling through his head. There are things that have been out of his control that he couldn't do anything about, but there are some things in his control. I really hope that whole process didn't screw him up. He wouldn't be the first that it had happened to. And I'm certainly not going to give up on him at this early stage. But it's going to require not just a standard development from him. He's got to really flip a switch here and show that he has the ability to learn how to perform at this level. The other thing I'll say, in talking about him with Blake Butera the other day, Blake, and I get it, he wants to try to pump his guy up. He's not going to badmouth him or trash him right now because that's not going to help his confidence. But he really did go out of his way to say, we are not just evaluating Dylan Crews based on his offense. He brings a lot more to the table as a base runner, as a defensive player. And so even if he's not hitting the way they hope, the feeling is that he's still a significant contributor for them in other ways. Now, I will say that defensively, he's had a few errors, a few sloppy plays, and they are starting to move him all around the outfield. This has become a theme now with a lot of guys. When Jacob Young was out with the wrist injury, Crews pretty much was in center field. But he has played some right, and he's even played some left field in recent days. Crews in left and Wood in right is not an alignment that I was anticipating. I don't know how it's all going to shake out, if this is going to be mix and match every day, or they're just trying this out in case they need it. I was surprised by that. And honestly, for all the struggles he's having offensively, is now the time to ask him to also learn how to play multiple positions in the outfield? I might prefer to see him in one spot and let that be the one thing he doesn't have to worry about right now.
Yeah, what is done with the outfielders in terms of where they play, how often they play, where they play, and how often some of these guys play, period, is going to be so interesting. Now, Jacob Young is back from the wrist injury. He should be good to go for opening day. Is that correct?
He believes so. He played his first game the other night, drew a couple of walks, long at bats, even attempted a diving catch in center field. It was a little awkward, but he came out of it fine. He believes that 1 week of gameplay is enough for him. They're not going to declare that yet. They're going to see how this goes. I think he should be in the lineup again here on Wednesday night. So they'll make that determination. But health-wise, he seems to be fine now. It's really just a matter of, can he get enough game action at the plate in the field? The good thing is, throughout all this, he was fine to do his defensive drills. He was doing his base running. That wasn't an issue. It was really just a matter of swinging the bat. They can find ways, even on the days that he doesn't play in the big league game. They can have him in the batting cage. They can have him in a minor league game, like leading off every inning, so he can get 6-7 at bats and no problem. So I think the feeling is that he should be fine, but they're not going to declare that yet until they see how this week goes.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Spring Sale and get 35% off paints and stains March 13th through the 23rd. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
swing and a fly ball right field toward the line. That's going to drop in, a base hit. Cruz has to chase it. Lindor around second, heading for third. They're going to wave him home. Cruz a little trouble picking it up, and Lindor will score standing without a play as the throw dribbles in through the cutoff man, and the catcher Jorge Alfaro up the third base line to retrieve it. Alonso is at first. Lindor's in the dugout, and the Mets leading 1-0.
All right, we have joked that we're not going to have the conversation that we have every year at this time, which is this the season the Nats are good again defensively? Because every year we have that conversation, and every season the Nats end up not being good defensively. This has not been a good defensive performance by this team so far in the exhibition season. You wrote about this for NatsJournal.com, and, I think there are definite justified concerns about the pitching. I think there is hope with the offense. I certainly have it that the offense can be at least decent. We'll see. But the defense is one of these deals here where, first of all, the recent track record is really bad. And now that we've seen what we've seen so far here these last few weeks, again, with the caveat of it's exhibition baseball, so who knows, but it's getting concerning that this could really be ugly defensively. Like, this team has not looked good defensively. If people listening have been watching some of these games, this has not been like a defensive clinic that the Washington Nationals have been putting on here.
No, and let's be clear, these are not the minor leaguers and the backups, although not that they've looked great either. But you're talking about when they play their regulars. They have not looked clean defensively at all. And this is the one area that Blake Butera does actually get a little bothered by. He said, you get bad pitching, spring training. Okay, you can live with that. You get bad hitting. Okay, there's a lot more that goes into that. It's not as simple as just, hey, go out there and hit and everybody's going to be good. But he feels like defense is the one part of the game that is controllable, in his words, that it's a matter of work and effort and time that you put into it. And he made the point that a few days ago, they had a 4-error game against, I believe it was the Cardinals in Jupiter. And he said after the fact that he believes it was a product of they had a bad morning session prior to the game. It wasn't a good, clean, crisp defensive workout before the game, and it showed up in the game. And so he had a talk with them all. And the next day, he felt really good about what they did in their pregame work. And then he said it showed up in the game. That was that night game against the Mets. So he feels like that's the kind of thing that they as a staff can control and the players themselves can control. And it's about staying mentally engaged, putting the work in, showing the effort. And so if there's anything that he's like actually publicly bothered by this spring, that I think is item number one on that list. We know, as you've said, how bad they have been defensively for several years now. You always hope it's going to get better. But for the most part, these are the same players that we've seen out there. And so you're not saying they're going to improve because they have a better player at this position or that position. You're saying they're going to be better because the players are going to get better or that the coaching is going to get better. You can run all the drills you want. That doesn't guarantee anything when the game starts. And while I can sit here and say, don't pay too much attention to offensive numbers in spring training or pitching numbers in spring training, because that's not always an accurate reflection of what's going to happen when the season begins. I think there's more correlation to defense. I don't know how many times I've watched a team in spring training look bad in the field and then seen them flip that switch and suddenly look like gold glovers come the regular season, and vice versa for that matter. So that is, to me, still a real concern. They need to clean this stuff up, and it may just be that some of these players aren't good defensive players, and you can work with them as much as you want. That's not going to change until you change the players.
I mean, the hope is that the Nats' improved process might lead to some of these guys improving defensively, i.e. better positioning, that kind of thing. But, you think about the 4 basic things in baseball: batting, base running, defense, and pitching. I think with batting and pitching, there definitely is an adjustment, minors to majors. I've always felt with base running and defense, there really shouldn't be that much of an adjustment. Like, if you in the minors are good at base running or good on defense, then you from the get-go in the majors should be good at base running and defense. Like, those things should translate pretty smoothly from the minors to the majors. And so when Blake Butera said that, I heard him. I was like, yeah, you're right about that. It should not be like, oh, this guy was really good defensively in the minors. We just called him up. There's going to be an adjustment period in the majors. Like, okay, maybe slightly, but like, if you can do it, you can do it. The fact that these guys have had a hard time doing it is troubling. I think it's such a big season for C.J. Abrams defensively. If he has another bad season defensively at shortstop, regardless of what he does offensively, I don't know how you continue with him as a shortstop. Like, at some point, you got to be real about this. Like, is he just not a major league shortstop? It is a huge defensive season for Luis Garcia Jr. to whatever extent he plays second base. Really bad defensively last season. Remember, though, he was decent, if not good defensively in 2024. I don't want to just forget that, but what kind of a defensive season do we get from Garcia this season? And I think a big wild card is Harry Ford. If in fact he ends up being the Nats' #1 catcher, what is he like defensively? We know about the defensive struggles of Keibert Ruiz. Is Ford a plus defender? Is he a guy who is not good defensively and just have to live with the defense because hopefully the bat is good? Is he decent defender? But, up the middle is what matters most, right? Center field, the Nats have an elite guy and Jacob Young, who knows how much he'll play, understood. But catcher, shortstop, second base, Ford, Abrams, Garcia. What kind of a defensive season does each guy have? I think that's a huge question.
Yeah, agreed. I'll throw Nasim Nunez into this mix because I do think we're going to see him a decent amount at second base. If Garcia's playing first, I think Nunez will be at second. And it may be a case where Blake Butera feels compelled to play Nunez as much as possible because the glove is that good and because it is an up the middle position, and that matters. And then I'm going to throw one more position into the mix here, and that's the pitching spot. A lot of the errors this spring have come from their pitchers. That can't happen. And I understand that you're only going to get a handful of chances a game, but they're usually significant moments. A bunt play, a grounder to the mound, covering first base, whatever that might be, they need their pitchers to, you don't have to excel defensively, but you just got to make the plays that you have to make, because you get what should be the easiest out in baseball, a grounder back to the mound, and you don't convert that. The domino effect is huge on those kind of plays. They get hurt so much by that stuff. We've seen it the last few years. So I want to see is the pitching defense much better than we've seen.
And we know that so much of what is happening with the Nats is influenced by the Tampa Bay Rays. Blake Butera came to the Nats having been with the Rays as either a player, coach, or executive since June 2015. The Nats general manager, Ani Kalambi, spent extensive time with the Rays, worked for the Rays May 2015 to November 2021. The Rays for years have been big on defense and big on, hey, we can only have so much offense because of our payroll, but our run prevention, we can make that as good as realistically possible. And for the Nats right now, if they're going to win some games here, that might be a path, or that would be the hopeful path anyway. But, run prevention could be a real issue this season because of the starting pitching concerns and the defensive concerns. So we'll see. The other thing, too, is we've talked about, like with a guy like Patrick Corbin, were his numbers made to look worse in recent years because the defense behind him was so bad. When you look at the veterans on the pitching staff, right, a Foster Griffin, a Zack Littell, a Miles Michaelis, will those guys be helped out by the defense behind them? Because, we don't know to what degree we'll be getting strikeouts from those guys. Hopefully, Cade Cavalli is striking out guys, but these other guys, these veterans who presumably will be putting a bunch of balls in play, to what extent will those balls in play be converted into outs by this Nats defense here? That's something to be wondering about.
100%. I was just going to say, you've got, outside of Cavalli, you've got a lot of ground ball pitchers. That's what their game plan is going in. Well, that doesn't work if you don't have the guys behind you to make the plays. And we've wondered for several years now how much of their pitching performance would have been different with better defense behind them. And it's a combination of putting them in the right position to be playing where the ball is most likely to be hit, but it's also, can they convert those balls into outs? And so I think that's a huge part of the equation. This is not a pitching staff that's going to light you up with strikeouts for the most part. So you better make the plays that you have to make behind them, or it's going to be another long season.
You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find Mark on X at Mark Zuckerman. You can find me on X at Al Galdi. The podcast is on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. And you can also email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also check out our website, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.